so people can catch up afterwards. Thanks everyone for taking the time this morning to join this information session to learn a bit more about the impact measurement pilot that we're going to be rolling out very shortly. I'm going to start with a brief kind of presentation. We'll then introduce some of the delivery team. I'll kind of continue the presentation after we have kind of Catherine from Impact Reporting, who will give a bit of an overview about the tool that we'll be using and the framework that we'll be using for this pilot Measure Up. And there'll be plenty of time for questions afterwards. I'll try and cover as much as kind of things that have kind of popped up through initial discussions with potential interested parties, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of other questions that will pop up afterwards. So I'm just going to share my screen. All right, if everyone can give me a thumbs up if they can start the presentation. Great. All right, first hurdle overcome, navigating the technicalities of sharing the screen. Just to give a bit of background, so I am Terry Murphy. For those who don't know me, I'm the Chief Exec here at the Sheffield Social Enterprise Network. We are the city's established social enterprise network. We've kind of got a track record in program delivery, kind of sector coordination and advocacy. We deliver to kind of 4 pillars principally. The first one being to advocate, so we represent a network and promote the benefits of social enterprise, both locally, regionally and nationally. In doing so, we try and elevate the sector's voice through both evidence and policy. We try to inspire as well, showcasing a lot of the work that goes on locally in the sphere of social enterprise. Most prominently and recently, we commissioned a film with Opus Films, which was a case study on the work of social enterprises locally in a systems change focus. We connect, we deliver and put on a range of events, an annual or sometimes twice annual conference. We delivered a festival of social enterprise this year for the first time, which we'll be rolling out again next year from late February onwards for a month. And we support the sector to grow. So we deliver specific business growth programs for the needs of social enterprise through our Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator, SAGA, which includes masterclasses, specialist support, peer networks, mentoring, all trying to kind of build the infrastructure for greater collaboration and systemic change locally and beyond. So that's us in a nutshell, but moving on to this project. So this pilot is being called Enhancing Social Impact Measurement Across South Yorkshire Social Enterprise Sector. So just given a very brief overview before I go into the detail and the rationale behind it. So the aim of the project is to support at least 50 regional, and that being South Yorkshire, social enterprises to enhance how they collect, report and use social impact data. Selection for enterprises will be based on your kind of readiness and capacity to generate like meaningful, consistent data over the pilot period, through the use and the implementation of a digital impact reporting tool, which we'll come on to later, and also supported by expert-led training, academic guidance through the delivery team that we'll introduce shortly, and as part of a participatory kind of co-design process throughout. So through all that, the ambition is that the sector regionally will be better able to articulate its kind of contribution to community wellbeing, inclusive growth, and local priorities. I guess in a nutshell, what we're trying to achieve through this is to get the kind of broader stakeholders, and by that I kind of talking to private sector, public sector commissioners, procurement leads, strategic leads, to rethink where value lies, to beyond what is genuinely seen as quite a narrow, siloed kind of view of value. And we know that the way value is generally measured often fails to capture the breadth and the depth of the impact of the organisations within social enterprise more broadly. So the rationale why this project matters, kind of speaking to what I just said, is we know that social enterprises deliver huge value to our region, but we often lack consistent and affordable ways to evidence it. So this is something, impact measurement, something that's been a bit of a bugbear for me for some time. I've, prior to my work in the social enterprise network, I'd led the development of social enterprises through the Archer project, a local homelessness project. We use social enterprise primarily as a tool to provide supported employment for people from a homelessness background who experience kind of multiple and complex disadvantage. And it was always a bit of a bugbear for me that when we were trying to kind of measure impact, if we kind of looked at simply like a number of the people we supported into employment, traditional impact metrics didn't really give any more value to the cohort that we were working with, the in-depth support, than they would, for instance, to a construction firm employing an unemployed apprentice for, let's say, a 3 to 6 months period. So for some time, I've thought there must be a better way of capturing that impact for the sector. And moving into my work with the network and our delivery through programs like the Social Enterprise Growth Accelerator, we'd seen frequent feedback about through these programs about the need on the part of enterprises to be better equipped, or better skills and tools to be able to capture their impact. It was one of the top areas for concern or need. So it's been kind of at the top of our radar for some time about something that we need to work on as a sector to address. A little over a year ago, this kind of issue was raised at a meeting between the Sheffield Voluntary and Community Sector Leaders Forum with the Sheffield City Council commissioning teams. And it was kind of broadly recognised that the council and like Sheffield City Council and other local authorities and private sector, they all want to be able to make better decisions around commissioning, procurement, so on and so forth. But there was a gap in the kind of the value that we all know that social enterprises bring, the breadth and the depth, and how we were able to collectively analyse that as a sector. I think we're all probably familiar with, like, for impact reporting, we're all pretty good at pulling out qualitative case studies about individual success stories and journeys, and that has real merit. But I think it was generally kind of a consensus agreement in the room that everyone was struggling with more in-depth qualitative data, and quantitative data very, very, very much absent. So we saw there was a supply and a demand issue there. So that led to an initial workshop with the wider voluntary and community and social enterprise sector at the University of Sheffield with Dr. John Birchall, looking at how we might reimagine that value, and it kind of particularly focused on some of the preventative work we do that actually, it doesn't necessarily, it's not about the outcome that happens, it's about what we stop happening through our intervention. So this was all very prominent in my mind. And shortly after this conversation, we heard about this fund, the Communities Innovating Yorkshire Fund, which is a programme as part of the Yorkshire Policy Innovation Partnership, or YPIP for short. It's supported by the UKRI's Local Policy Innovation Partnership Initiative, and had different strands as part of this kind of grant programme, all kind of focused on collaborative research and innovation around inclusive growth, sustainable living, community-led data and decision making. So this project is funded through the data, the community data strand of that program. So our kind of response to all of that, and kind of unpicking it into our pilot, is that what we hope to do is create a collaborative, inclusive, and data-led model to make social value visible, comparable, and actionable across South Yorkshire. So, reiterating the point I made earlier, we'll be supporting at least 50 social enterprises to enhance how you collect, report, and use social impact data. We'll be doing this through the implementation of a robust digital impact reporting tool, one that we've kind of done research around the tools that are available, and we settled on this tool because we felt it was a tool that was developed with kind of the VC SE sector in mind. It is better positioned to be able to capture the breadth and depth of the impact of the sector. It's linked to an open source framework called Measure Up, so that gives us the optionality through this pilot to develop our own metrics and validate our own metrics where we see that there aren't metrics that are fit for purpose. It also, this tool works with a variety of frameworks, so it will allow us to kind of compare between frameworks as well. And this whole process is going to be supported by expert-led training throughout, some academic guidance, and that participatory co-design process that I've spoke about. So a strong emphasis on community engagement, a strong emphasis on accessibility, and a strong emphasis on transparency. So all with the intent that the enterprises that participate in the pilot aren't just collecting data for collecting data's sake, but we're going to be using it in a meaningful way to demonstrate value, both on an individual organizational level, but also aggregating that data on a kind of network level that will support our collective capacity to advocate for more resource and shape services in a better way through that realignment of value. So I'm going to pause there for a moment and I'll stop sharing, and I just want to kind of briefly kind of bring in some of the delivery partners, just so they can introduce themselves, so you just get a bit of a flavour about who they are, why they're kind of part of this project, and what they can potentially bring. So I'm going to stop sharing. So we, just to kind of run through very briefly. So we Sen are the lead delivery partner on this project. That will principally be myself as the chief exec, but also Mike Barrett-Wright, who is leading on our systems and impact work internally. We're also working with the academic lead will be Dr. John Birchall from the University of Sheffield Management School, who I've already referenced, who is also part of that broader work with the voluntary and community sector. We'll be working with Tom French from Data for Action, insighting into the whole process, but also, we've got specialisms in data mapping and visualization. As I've already alluded to, we'll be using the impact reporting tool that's linked to the Measure Up framework, and we'll be working with Catherine Manning from Impact Reporting, who's got kind of experience across both of those organisations. And also to ensure that kind of what we're what we're doing is strategically aligned. We have representatives from Sheffield City Council's we have Lou Branch, who's the policy and improvements lead, who's kind of the main person responsible for kind of liaising between the council and the broader VCFSE sector. Alongside those kind of delivery partners, and we will be inviting a representative from the participant group to sit on the steering group, and we will also be inviting I've had kind of broader discussions with like social value, procurement and commissioning leads across the different local authorities, who will be inviting to participate in the co-design process as well. In addition to, we've invited representatives from other kind of reporting tools, or people who run other frameworks, so that we can ensure that everyone's in the room really, and we can make sure that the decisions we're making in that co-design process really reflects the current state of play and what we're trying to achieve as a network. So just going to stop sharing there for now. So in no particular order, I'm just going to kind of go through who's on my screen top to bottom, just to introduce himself. I'm going to start with Tom. Do you want to introduce yourself, Tom?
Thanks, Terry. Can you hear me all right? I look like I'm sitting in a phone box, but it's just a booth in a co-working space. It does feel like a phone box, to be honest. Hello, everyone. I'm Tom French. I think I know some of you. I work for an organisation called Data for Action. We're very small, it's just two of us, and we sort of specialise in wrangling with data and insight for social purpose, I guess. So sometimes that's charities, sometimes that's social enterprises, sometimes a bit of public sector as well. And our role really in this project is just to kind of support a bit of the process, but really think about some of the visualization stuff, how we might think about that spatially as well. So I've been doing a lot of work recently around neighbourhoods in Sheffield and South Yorkshire, so kind of applying some of those techniques to what we might figure out through this process, and also just to be part of the process and in the true spirit of a pilot, kind of figure out best ways of doing things sort of together really as a co-design piece. And just for transparency purposes, I'm also a non-executive voluntary board member of SEN as well. So yeah, just so you know that side of my role as well.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Lou. I can't see your picture, but if Lou, if you're in the room, would you be able to introduce yourself and just give a bit of context why this work is important from a Sheffield City Council perspective?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Lou. I'm Policy and Improvement Officer at Sheffield City Council, working on the council's relationship with voluntary community, faith and social enterprise organisations. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this project can help us to kind of really describe the value of our relationship with social enterprises, but also the wider sectors too. I think there's a lot we can say through this work, and it'll be great to work with the organisations to find better ways of demonstrating impact and improving how we think about that at the council. And of course, the social value element too in our procurement.
Perfect. Thanks, Lou. I'm now going to also just bring in Catherine, just to kind of briefly introduce herself and the work, her work with impact reporting and the Measure Up framework. Catherine is going to come in shortly afterwards as well, just to give us a bit of an overview of those tools. So if you just want to come in briefly now, Catherine.
Yes, thanks, Terry, and great to be here with you all today. My name's Catherine Manning, and I'm the head of impact practice at impact reporting. Already tripping over all of the impact and social value words. Seems to I say it so many times it's lost all meaning. So I'm head of impact practice at a company called Impact Reporting, and I'm also the programme director of a program of work called Measure Up, which is the valuation and measurement framework. I'm a sort of self-confessed social value and impact management geek, heavily involved with the Social Value International network on the board and in numerous other roles. So if you spend any time with me, I'll start banging on about social value principles and measuring and valuing outcomes and involving stakeholder voice. And I've got a big bugbear around assurance and accreditation and and all of these sorts of things. So if anybody's geeky about these sorts of things too, then please do reach out, and I'd be very happy to chat about that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here and a part of the programme. In terms of my role and work on the programme, I'll give you a bit of an introduction to impact reporting, the company and the software in a second, along with Measure Up, the programme and the framework. And my role really, and our company's role, will be practically supporting the use and implementation of that framework and the tools in the work that you're doing all across Sheffield. So I'll pause there, pass back to Terry.
Brilliant. Thanks, Catherine. I think it's really kind of important for me to note like how valuable and it is to have the impact nerds, as Catherine framed it, in the room. You know, Catherine, Tom, and John, who unfortunately can't join us today, because as I've kind of already articulated, we were able to kind of diagnose what the problem is, and we understood what was the solution, actually kind of creating a framework about how we get from problem to a solution. I think it's really important to have people like Catherine and Tom and John, who kind of bring, you know, are all probably self-confessed impact nerds, but bring a breadth and depth of experience. They would operate in slightly different spaces. But the real experts in the room are the social enterprises, you know, who are part of this pilot, and that is why we were so keen that co-design would be at the heart of everything we do. So I'm going to kind of just very quickly just share one slide on the kind of process, but it is only one slide because really the actual process that we're going to follow is going to be, or the approach moreover, is going to be defined by those co-design sessions. So, you know, broadly speaking, we're commissioned to deliver this over a 12-month period, kind of starting this month, where we're going through an engagement phase, trying to share information, connect with different stakeholders, and ultimately, the most important thing of all is getting at least 50 social enterprises agreeing to participate as part of this. From next month, I think it's the second Tuesday. I don't know if it's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday Tuesday the 11th of November at 10:30? We'll have our first in-person co-design session. I think we've booked that in for, I don't know if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours. Location to be confirmed, but it will be a Sheffield city centre location, and we've got a follow-up co-design workshop planned for the following month. I think it's Tuesday the 9th of December. So we'll be sharing dates around that. So it's really important to us that organisations that participate in this are engaged in that co-design process, that they lean on the kind of support, that there's kind of regular kind of feedback and support mechanisms throughout the pilot period. We'll weave in new metrics where appropriate. We'll review metrics where they're not appropriate. But ultimately, the idea is to have that co-design process, use the digital tools, that being the impact reporting platform, to build like capacity to measure on impacts through like the workshops, the onboarding, peer learning, and have that kind of inclusive governance the part of it. So before we kind of move on just to kind of the next phase, I'm going to bring Catherine in, who's going to give a bit of an overview of kind of Measure Up and impact reporting, so we've all got a bit of a sense of that. So I'll stop sharing now. So over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, just bear with me for 1 second, everybody, whilst I find how to share on Google Meet. I'm a Teams user mostly, so immediately tripped up by a different platform. So yeah, just give me 1 second and I'll pull up this slide deck. Okay. Can everyone see that? Is that okay? Great. Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up from Terry there, which is great. Lovely. Okay, yeah, so like I said, my name's Catherine Manning, and as Terry has said, I'm just going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour introduction to both impact reporting and Measure Up, because I presume for lots of people in the room, both of these things will be new or relatively new, and they're two different entities that work together, and that in itself can sometimes be a little confusing. But overall, you know, it's two initiatives that are focused on supporting the organisations, the experts in the room, like Terry had said, organisations like your organisations that are making real impact within our communities, our society, and our environment. So to give a little introduction to us about impact reporting. First off, we are a small business based in Manchester, proudly independent, proudly gay-owned, founded and run, and diverse, friendly and inclusive. Our mission is to support organisations to be a true force for good, so that we are aiming for a more sustainable, stable and equitable world for now and into the future. In terms of practice, we align to the social value principles. You won't be surprised by that, seeing as I've already mentioned them twice now in my social value geek status. And we're offering this support primarily. Our bread and butter is a software platform, which, you know, it's most basic. It's a data management system, right? So you might have data management systems for lots of things. So people might have CRMs or HR systems or marketing systems or volunteer management systems, these sorts of things. So ours is a platform that's specifically designed for gathering, analysing and reporting our impact data, and that's sort of in the broadest terms. So impact, social value, ESG, social impact. We might hear all of these different terms bandied around. Our platform is very configurable and flexible, so that we can support people with the practice that's most important and most relevant for them, rather than us defining, if you're going to measure impact, you have to measure X, Y, and Z. And we support that through with wider support. So as head of impact practice, I lead up our consultancy and sort of practice support side as well. In terms of types of organisations we work with, we work with everyone really across public, private and civil society, believing all of us have an impact, no matter which type of organisation or sector we're working in. And I suppose importantly for how we'll be working together over this coming year, we use Measure Up. That's our primary measurement and valuation framework, and that's default set up within the system. But we are framework agnostic, and so can accommodate and incorporate measurement and valuation frameworks that are most appropriate for each of the people using the platform. And that might be a combination of different frameworks or measurements or metrics that people are wanting to be able to use. So that's impact reporting, and then there's Measure Up. So Measure Up is a program of work, and evaluation and measurement framework that is the impact reporting are heavily involved in, and the sort of executive office of. but it's a collaborative, co-founded programme through ourselves, Impact Reporting, and a company called PRD, who work in sustainable placemaking, and State of Life, who are experts in wellbeing and social value evaluation and valuation practice. And the idea behind this was people working in this social value and impact space and thinking there's something needed in terms of the measurement and valuation offer that's out there, and we believe that there should be something better, something more accessible, something more transparent. And rather than just rumbling about it behind closed doors and getting cross at what's not out there, why don't we put our money where our mouth is and have a go at making something new, get practical, release it to the world, and together we can start to use and get better at measurement and valuation practice together. So the plan is for a clear, transparent valuation framework that helps to inform our actual decision making. And so that's what we've been working on building for both Impact Reporting and Measure Up, and our co-founding partners as a part of Measure Up. We understand social value to be about the impact on the well-being of the population, right? So that's a sort of a short, simplified version of the definition from the UK Government Green Book. So we adhere to or align with that definition. We also bear in mind and think about the definition through Social Value International of social value being about the worth or importance people or stakeholders place on the changes to the well-being that they experience. And important, I suppose, to recognise that there's conflation of these different definitions. So the BSI, or British Standards Institute, also recognise social value as being about the generation of personal and collective well-being. So, I mean, overall, there's reasonable agreement that if we're talking about social value, then we're talking about well-being, and that's what both Impact Reporting and Measure Up, that's what we believe, and that's what we're trying to build things towards to help people to gather and measure and manage that version of impact. So we're trying to help people. People might have seen these sorts of things before, right? How are we creating impact? We do a thing, an activity. We put some money and resource into the activity. We do the thing, the social environmental thing, and then some outputs might happen. Number of people turned up, number of product that is created, and we're pretty good at defining those things and measuring those things in a fairly consistent way. That doesn't necessarily allow us to understand the outcomes, the change that's happening, or our impact, the amount of that that's down to us. So my little image of the tiny pie there. What's our slice of the change in well-being pie that's happening? And that's what both Impact Reporting and Measure Up are trying to work towards, to help people to be able to measure and manage that change in outcomes and the amount of that that's down to us, that we've got the ability to influence. So we're essentially helping us all to understand and move from understanding the cause to the effect. What's the impact that we're having? So within Measure Up itself, it will publish everything through an open website. I'll be able to share the link to that into the chat once I've stopped talking, because I can't do two things at once. But it's an open and transparent, freely available measurement and valuation framework. We aim for it to be pragmatic and practical. It's all well and good having lots of nicely branded things on a website, but unless people get in there and use it, then it's just a nice thing I've worked on for the last few years. Watch me slowly have a heart attack. And we want it to be sustainable and progressive. So, we don't want to build something and then just leave it. We want this to be something that can actually continue to support people to better understand, measure and manage their social value. within the set of values themselves, what you'll find is a combination of activities, so things that we do, and outcomes, things that change or that we experience because of doing activities. All of those values are aligned to one of the 10 dimensions of well-being, as defined by the Office of National Statistics. I won't go into all the details of those. There might be other ways that we understand and define well-being, but this is a starting point for us to be able to understand and define the stuff that impacts on our well-being. The types of value that you'll find in there include economic value, fiscal value, well-being values, and environmental value. So there's one or other or a combination of those aligned to these different activities and outcomes in the value set. They're also aligned to things like the Sustainable Development Goals, and certainly as a part of this project and pilot programme, we'll be looking to align the values here or any new things that we define to measure and value to the Sheffield City goals. So just an example of the kind of mapping we've done already, but certainly we'll be looking to do some mapping that's most relevant for your use case and your framework. Methodologically speaking, we align to the social value principles. I've already banged on about those at least 3 times now, so I won't do that again to you. We utilise and adhere to the UK government guidance through the Green Book, and particularly the supplementary guidance on well-being and measuring and valuing well-being, and the kind of data sources we're using to research the values that are included. We primarily and try to use open data sources and openly published research. So stuff like through the Office of National Statistics, the Understanding Society data sets, through more specific types of organisations that might be looking at a particular area of work, so like Sport England, or through reports that are published through different government departments or specific bodies. So just to give you a bit of an impression of the kind of values that you might find in there, this is just a selection. We've got over 40 that are published now, but you might get some that are about environmental things. So the obvious one would be around measuring greenhouse gas emissions, but there's other stuff like around recycling and waste management, or business travel, or things like that. There's stuff around where we live, so access and the impact of green space, increasing community cohesion or community integration, and improvements to our neighbourhoods and in local environments. There might be things that people are doing around education and skills, so there might be engagement with young people through things like wellbeing programmes, learning for young people moving into work, like being on apprenticeships or traineeships, or people might be doing specific programmes around learning in work, so adult learning for work. We also have stuff to do with health, so things like improving mental health. I know a lot of people are doing work in that much needed area. So that's the values side. In terms of the measurement side, it's the other half of the framework, if you will. We're really interested in and want to support people with progressive measurement. So I'm sure lots of people have come across this. You know, they might see big social value numbers out there, and there's not necessarily clarity on what's gone into the measurement that then translates into the figure. And there's differences in quality of data and data gathering. So we've outlined that through bronze, silver and gold measurement levels. So bronze might be quite easy, quite simple, number of people times proxy value, or number of thing times proxy value. The silver level might be actually understanding that there's differences in people and our experiences, and therefore our experience of the change in well-being when we participate in a programme or something is different for us. Gold level is where we aim to move from estimation into evidence, and we gather data directly from people themselves. So one of my co-founders had said, if we're going to claim that we've had an impact on somebody's well-being, at some point we should probably ask them if we have, and we want that to be represented within this measurement framework. We have this gold plus level, which is where we sort of most formally deal with attribution or causality or dead weight, all of these rather worrying terms. And that's at gold plus level because it's quite challenging. But we also have a sort of bronze plus and a silver plus, where we deal with that attribution or how much is down to us, but in a more proportionate way for these easier or more simple levels of measurement. I'll flick through this really quickly. I just wanted to check to really emphasize this point about the difference, because it's already been highlighted that one of the frustrations with impact measurement or social value measurement at this point in time is not recognizing those differences between sort of general person in the UK versus those that might need the support more, or that the change is more valuable for, right? So this is really best represented in Measure Up at our silver level of measurement, right? And it might be increasing data or understanding of things about people. So for example, things about us and our demographics or about protected characteristics that might significantly impact on how we experience the world, the UK. It might be something to do with where we live, right? So different places within the UK, even down to quite specific postcodes within a small area, can mean that we've got different access and availability to all the different resources and opportunities that are there. And there might be something that's different about where we're coming from or where we're starting at, like be very different working with somebody who's got good mental health and then their mental health improves a little bit, versus working with somebody who's got really poor mental health and then their mental health changing a lot. So some sort of recognition of that. Again, just to recognize that this gold level, even with all of that information about people, it's still really important to get their own opinion on whether anything has changed at all. So that's a bit of an introduction to impact reporting and Measure Up. How they work together is that, these are two separate things, irrespective of whether you use impact reporting into the future. Measure Up will be there and anyone can use it and incorporate that into their social value measurement and valuation approach. Impact reporting will also still be there, but it's working more practically with clients and customers to be able to gather and manage and report on their data in through the software product. How they come together is that Measure Up is available in and embedded within the impact reporting system. In terms of the sort of process that we'd be going through, and our support will be working to support the project and yourselves in terms of aligning to the Measure Up framework and or developing new measures and metrics that would be more suitable for your particular framework, then actually putting that into the system and offering ongoing support, so that through SSEN, all of the social enterprises that are part of the pilot will be supported. Just to have another slide with my face on, here's me as part of the dedicated team that will be here and will be supporting throughout the programme. So yeah, that's a bit of an introduction to us and to impact reporting and Measure Up. Yeah, we're really looking forward to working with you all. I'll stop sharing now and pass back to Terry.
Thanks, Catherine. That was really useful, and just kind of also to acknowledge, and probably what a lot of people are feeling. I've heard that or a similar presentation probably 3 or 4 times. I'm still getting my head around it. So don't worry if you're kind of like feeling the same right now. That's kind of part of the kind of ongoing support, the co-design process. It will become clearer as we kind of move through this process, because we're kind of, for a lot of us, we're kind of talking in language that may feel unfamiliar. It may also feel quite daunting. So I think it's kind of important to acknowledge that. So I want to ensure that we've got plenty of time for questions, but I just want to very quickly run through a couple more slides. So with 2 of the main kind of questions that have kind of been put to me to date around this pilot are, it's all well and good that we're going to go through this pilot, but how are we as individual organisations going to be able to afford a tool like this beyond the pilot period? And also kind of how are we going to manage kind of what are already stretched limited resources and bandwidth as a team to engage with it, and what are the benefits of that? So we license it. One of the reasons we license, I often think about when we're looking about what we do as a network, it's evaluating any opportunity about, is this best delivered by individual organisations, or are there clear advantages or reasons why it should be delivered at a network or an infrastructure level? Now, so we've license the impact reporting tool as a network, and within that, essentially each organization sits as a different project within it, where have their own kind of reporting and login and capacities, and that just makes it a lot more cost effective. So in terms of the cost, we're already looking at how, beyond the period of this pilot, we would potentially incorporate the use of this pilot for the network into other work we do, whether that is incorporating it through kind of commissioned programs like SAGA, whether it is ongoing grant support, or it's subsidized through our membership. But there is massive economies of scale involved in us kind of running it as a network. So the worst case scenario is it might be like £20 a month, like beyond the period of this pilot, for individual organisations within the network to engage with it. But I think we're very confident that we'll be able to keep it free at the point of use. I think it's also really important to note that there is a process, a co-design process. We won't be asking you to collect data on 30, 40 things. It's more likely to going to be 5 or 10 things that are most relevant. It might be even just half a dozen things that we can collect consistently across the pilot cohort, in addition to a few other metrics that might be kind of specific to the needs of specific organisations. As Catherine's alluded to, we will be designing the platform. We will collectively decide what we want to measure, how we want to measure it, what are the proxy measures, is it measure up, like where there are gaps, where we want to align something to a city goal, do we want to create something new? We'll also be potentially having comparison with other social frameworks, as well as measure up to have equivalence, but also as part of that kind of process of being able to demonstrate how measure up is better captures that breadth and depth. It will be useful as on an individual level, but also for us as a network. This kind of comparative insight will also help us identify systemic trends, align kind of that collective impact with strategic goals, and strengthen the evidence base for kind of future funding and commissioning. So just very quickly, the timeline, like between now and Christmas, like it is engagement, co-design, onboarding. Intention is to roll out the tool from January onwards. That will, again, probably recognising the challenges with bandwidth. It won't be we'll roll everything out straight away. We'll probably build on the tool as we go through. There'll be one-to-one support available all the way through that. We'll have regular check-ins and so on and so forth. There will be an evaluation process at the end. This is not going to be one of those things where you engage in it. There's an evaluation process. We submit it to the funders, tick a box, and then that's job done, and then it finishes. Like we've only made the decision to do this pilot because we believe that it is the start of something big, something very necessary for this sector, and we really kind of need everyone to be on that journey with us. What we expect to come out in the end, consistent, credible impact data from at least 50 social enterprises regionally. That will strengthen our capacity for sector-wide capacity, confidence, and collaboration. Potentially, we'll have new validated metrics that kind of added to that open source framework, aligned with the Sheffield City goals, which I think is certainly really important for Sheffield-based organisations. In any case, we'll have a shared regional impact dashboard, which is going to be so valuable for all of us. And I think one of the big, we're part of a national social enterprise network, and there's a lot of interest within that national network around impact measurement. Everyone across every social enterprise across the UK is experiencing similar challenges. So there's a real appetite for the learning from this to be replicated out, which again is going to strengthen the sector nationally. Very quickly, this is a programme for social enterprises, so we are defining participation and eligibility as kind of businesses with a primary social environmental objective whose surpluses are principally reinvested for that purpose in the business or community rather than mainly being paid out to shareholders. The eligibility follows the same eligibility as our SAGA programme. So it's these kind of questions. Does your organisation have that clear environment or social purpose? Do you have a long-term plan, at least, to earn more of half of your organisational income through trading? Will you reinvest or donate half of the organisational profits? Is the organisation transparent in the way it operates and impacts? And I think crucially, and I've alluded to this at the start, selection will also be based on your readiness. Are you in a point where you have an ability to generate meaningful, consistent data during the period of the pilot? So I'll stop there. So I'm just gonna stop sharing. So happy to kind of open up to questions now. So if there's a raised hand tool on the bottom toolbar. So if anyone wants to raise a question, then please do so now. Don't seem to have any hands raised. So I'm taking that as a compliment that this has been a very thorough kind of overview. But if, did we have a question there from, was that Jane putting her hand up? Yep.
No, sorry, that was a total accident.
Right, we've got Aisha.
Yeah, so if organisations that don't participate in the pilot, I guess we still get to see the outputs from it and perhaps see the tool, learn from the tool and so on. Yeah,
100%. Of like throughout, I should have noted as well. We even though we're going to be kind of doing an evaluation at the end of the pilot, the point is we want this to be an iterative process, and we're going to be reporting on progress for it all the way through. And the expectation is that by having we do for this to be of any value, there does need to be a critical mass of organisations participating in it. But the intention would be that beyond the pilot, we've created a shared framework, a shared tool that all social enterprises regionally and beyond, should they choose to, can feed into. But I think from an organisational perspective, and I kind of hear this like from my own experience of kind of spending the best part of a decade head down, day to day, not having bandwidth for much. I really appreciate the challenges with that. But similarly, like engaging with it, I think those that are engaging with it from the start will play a part in shaping it, and will also have those insights that they can use straight away to support their own organizations kind of strategy and kind of funding and commissioning and so on and so forth. But in a nutshell, yes, it will be shared widely. Kaleido Arts. Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Hi, yeah, sorry, my name's Fran. My question was, what are the next steps for organisations who want to be a part of who want to be considered? Is there an application process?
Yeah,
Getting the pilot?
Yeah, there's an expression of interest form that was shared like through our newsletter and on the website. I don't know if April here can possibly share it in the chat, but if not, it's on the on the blog on the website. I think there's a link to the expression of interest form.
Okay.
So probably take about 5 minutes or so to complete. But
lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen?
Yeah, it's more of a practical one. So on Friday there was another another one of these. Is it the same one, or do we need to come to that as well?
No, it will be essentially repeating what we're going over today. We just wanted to hold like 2 sessions just so we could, if people are unavailable for one, there is an option for the other. And we are recording this session as well. So we'll be kind of posting it through the newsletter and online. So anyone who's unable to attend either will be able to find out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Jack?
Hi, that's really interesting. Thanks ever so much for the session. I've just got a question around, I suppose it's around capacity and the sort of commitment that organisations would need to make to regular meetings, to time to contribute to the work.
Yeah, so I think initially there's those 2 co-design workshops, one in November, one in December. Appreciate that not all organisations will necessarily be able to go to both, but it's just, again, reiterating, it's important for us that we probably get, a dozen or a couple of dozen or organisations in the room to better so it is genuinely co-designed. Beyond the rollout of the tool, there'll probably be an induction session, just going through the tool itself. And then I think we'll probably have regular check-ins through the program, but we really kind of don't want to make it too onerous. We will, on those regular check-ins, we'll be recording it. There will be one-to-one support available. So it's the real, I think the ongoing task for all of you will be identifying of those, say, a dozen metrics that we capture, which are particularly relevant to you as an organisation, and ensuring that you're capturing those and updating the tool on a monthly basis. I should kind of reinforce there that the intention with this isn't about reinventing the wheel. Part of this co-design process will be looking at what data are you already capturing, but not necessarily analysing or turning into an outcome and impact. So there will be a full recognition of the kind of the bandwidth and the capacity issues within the sector. So we'll be trying to make engagement as accessible as possible. Does that answer your question, Jack?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I mean, it's not to suggest that, so I'm from a community film and photography kick in Sheffield called Film Farm. And we've launched, but there's only a few of us on the team at the moment. A lot of the work that we do is voluntary because we're trying to secure funding for our kind of next stage of our growth. So it's just to get a sense of that. This feels like really valuable work that we really want to be involved in, but at the same time we're sort of spinning multiple plates.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there will be a kind of natural, in terms of the time that organisations contribute, it will probably increase depending on how established or how big the organisations are. Like, we want to capture the breadth of the sector, but naturally, probably an organisation like your own, mainly voluntary-led, maybe certainly in the early stages, there will be less to capture. But that does not mean that what you're capturing is any less relevant or important for what we're trying to spin out.
Well, thank you.
I realise we're just a couple of minutes over. Is there any other pressing questions, or Catherine, do you think, is there anything to kind of come in on any of those questions that you think of I haven't captured?
No, I think you've covered it all beautifully, Terry, but I would just echo that point that you were having with the discussion with Jack there about absolutely within a shared measurement framework across a social enterprise sector, there has to be recognition of proportionality, and that it needs to be something that's accessible for different levels of complexity and maturity, or I can't think of the right business word, but the size of the organization and the length that you've been running for. So yeah, it's definitely something that we'll need to take into account when developing the measurement and valuation framework, and certainly something that we do a lot of that, right? There's no point making a really beautiful, large, complicated measurement and valuation framework that's totally overwhelming and people can't use, but then it's sort of balancing that with saying, right, there's stuff that isn't well recognized in the measurement and valuation options that are out there that are doing a disservice to social enterprises and those working and having really important impact in our communities. So yeah, that's the hope with this pilot, that we're going to get something that's practical, useful, and brings visibility to the impact that all of your organisations are making.
Thanks, Catherine. I think that's really important points there. And I do think, this is a pilot, and this is a pilot, it feels like we're in a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Like we have stretched bandwidth, part of which is because we're under-resourced as a sector. Part of the reason we're under-resourced as a sector is because we are unable to articulate our value, the depth and breadth of it sufficiently to that translate into more funds, whether that be through kind of contract services, commissioning. So I think as this process unfolds, not just through the pilot period, but beyond it, our collective capacity to capture more will increase as we are able to use the impact from what we're capturing to demonstrate, to draw more resources into our organisations. So in reality, this might be a 9-month pilot in terms of the delivery period, but it's probably a 2, 3, 4 year process of starting to reimagine where value sits, so that the sector can be acknowledged for the depth and the breadth of the value that it generates for society. That, I think, is a good point to finish the conversation. Thanks for those of you that were able to stay to the end, and the recording will be available. And if you know of any other social enterprises that aren't here today that you think this would be of interest to, please also kind of point them in our direction. So unless anyone else has got anything else to contribute, I'll say thank you to all of you for being here, and I look forward to welcoming you to the pilot kind of moving forward and seeing if we can, no mean feat, reimagine where value sits within our society. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.